Welcome back to yet another episode of my channel of The Old Gray Man, talking about going gray and the gray man concept. And today we're going to talk a little bit about mindset and where that fits into this idea of going gray. Understand that if you decide to live the life of a gray man, just a low profile way of going through the world, whether you're out in public or at home or driving or whatever it happens to be for your use case, it all starts in your head. All right, you have to make a decision. It's not a major life decision. Let's not blow this into something that it doesn't have to be, but it is a decision, right? You've got to decide that this is the route you want to go. If you want to do that, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Obviously, you can do other things. But either way, to make a decision, you need information. If it's going to be an informed decision, and I think it should be if this is a route you're considering. I've been a federal law enforcement agent. I did it for 20 years. I currently do private investigation work. I do some executive protection work. I've done a lot of criminal cases, counterterrorism work, counterintelligence work while I was working as a Fed. That equates to a lot of training. Got to go to a lot of really cool schools, worked with a lot of very experienced people. I have my own experiences, obviously. Things that worked, things that didn't work. But the point of all that was there was a lot of surveillance involved in this work. And when you're doing surveillance, that means you've got to be invisible while you're actively watching other people. In my case, and in most people's cases that do this professionally, some of those people are highly trained. Right? Some of those people are very, very well-trained nation-state actors from opposing nations that know how to detect surveillance and counter it. So they're looking for people who don't fit in. They're looking for someone who is watching them. So defeating those guys and gals, it can be tricky, but it really calls upon some intensive gray man skills. And that's where I'm coming at when I talk to you about these things, or where I'm coming from. So the first thing you really need to ask yourself is, do I need to do this? Is this something I want to do? Is it something that it's imperative for me to do? Do I want to be a gray man? Do I want to put forth that effort? Assuming that you do, the next decision would be, how much of a gray man do I want to be? How gray do I need to go? Am I going to be a dilettante and just sort of talk about it at parties or a barbecue gray man? So when you go to, neighborhood barbecues, you can talk about how gray you are. Do you want to be hardcore? Do you just want to vanish off the face of the earth, disappear from all forms of social media and off the computer and just, off the grid, as they say? Is that the route you want to take? Or do you want to go more of a moderate approach to it, which is the one I take? I suggest that it might be one that actually allows you to live your life in a normal fashion, but still taking advantage of the benefits of being a gray man. You have to ask yourself, how much do I want to change? Do I change my clothes, change my appearance, change my behavior, change my mindset? And how much can I change? I mean, wanting to make a change and actually making a change are two different things. And that disconnect can be difficult for some people. You have to figure it out for yourself. Is this something I want to do? Is it something I need to do? Is it something I can do? That's where I'm going to try and help you and give you some information points to, factor into your decision-making rubric. A big point of being gray, once you decide that that's the route you want to go, is you can't go mindlessly through the world, right? You've got to keep your head in the game. You have to stay mentally engaged. That can be a big step. Understand that most people go through life really unobservant. They're really not paying a whole lot of attention. They're paying enough attention to avoid banging into one another and falling off of cliffs. But beyond that, people can be surprisingly detached and unobservant, shall we say clueless. Don't be like that. If you're going to be gray, pay attention. Now, that doesn't mean you have to walk through the world with your head constantly on a swivel looking for the next terminal threat. We don't want you looking like Cyberdyne Systems Model 101 walking down the street. That's sort of the antithesis of gray, and it goes into very, very difficult behaviors, and it's a little silly. So don't do that. Remember, most of the people you run into on a day-to-day basis, they're no threat to you. They're just, under normal circumstances, are non-threatening. People are generally incapable of hurting one another, except on accident. Most people don't wish you ill. Now, that being said, we have to recognize that there are some people that will wish you ill. Maybe not you personally, maybe you personally. I don't know how you work your life. But there are those out there who will victimize other people, and that's who we're trying to avoid. But when I say stay mentally engaged, that means you have to stay mentally engaged. And you can do that without being obvious about it, but keep your head on a swivel in terms of paying attention to what you see around you. It's very easy to not do that. It's very easy to simply drift off, get lost in your own thoughts and all the multiple demands on your time that we all have to deal with, especially in 2020, right? But think about it through that lens. Think about your own life. You ever take a drive and go from point A to point B, perhaps someplace that you travel often to and from work, for example, and not remember any of the details of the drive? Just sort of pull into your parking space at the end of the drive and go, I'm here. And not remember anything. Most of us have had that experience. Or just walking through a parking lot and paying attention to, again, what your own thoughts, what's on your phone, whatever it is that's occupying your time and thought, but not seeing what's around you, not observing what's around you, not perceiving what's around you. You've got to avoid that. Don't fall into that. You have to pay attention. This is not just if you're going gray, but also just in sort of a general approach to life. I mean, it'll keep you from getting run over by a car, for example, if you're just paying attention. It's a more overarching statement. Paying attention can really defeat a lot of efforts at victimizing you. You know, somebody is targeting you or looking for someone to target. Simply seeing you notice them can cause them angst and can, in a lot of cases, stop what they are going to do. Especially if once you see them, you recognize them as a potential threat and you let them know you've seen them by looking back at them hard, so they now notice that you have noticed. That can solve a problem. It can also antagonize some people, and we'll talk about how to deal with that probably in later videos. But by and large, your less than hardcore criminal types aren't looking for a fight. They're looking for a victim. And once they get the idea that you're not a victim, they pass over you, they move on to the next guy or girl. But this mental engagement, this staying aware of your environment, this situational awareness that gets a lot of play, that's probably the most difficult single step in the gray man's arsenal for a lot of people. It's hard to stay mentally engaged all the time. It doesn't take a lot of obvious effort, but it takes effort between your ears, and that can be difficult for some people. The flip side of that coin is, with other people being so clueless most of the time, it really works out well for the person trying to go gray. Use their lack of attention to your advantage, right? Don't do anything to deliberately raise your profile. Don't go out of your way to make yourself more noticeable. Remember, there are very, very few true surveillance professionals in the world. There are not a lot of people out there who are trained in surveillance techniques or professionals at it who are then going to target the average person walking down the street. Which is good news because, face it, if a pro surveillance team decides to target you, you're probably already screwed. You've probably already raised your profile in some bad way in the first place to get on their radar. So your problems have already well begun by the time you get a professional surveillance team following you around. So do what you can to stay under their radar and stay off their radar. Criminals, I suppose you could term them as professionals at surveillance in as much as it leads to their criminal activity, which feeds a lot of them. But they're not, in the main, trained in surveillance techniques. What does that mean? That means that they're not trained to pick out a person who's looking for them. You're running your own counter surveillance. They're looking for victims. And if they determine that you're not a victim, they'll move on, by and large. Another big decision that should go along with all of this, and should be kind of without saying, but I'm going to say it anyhow, is obey the law. Right? I mean, it seems pretty obvious to most people. Breaking the law brings attention with it. It brings attention to the people around you, it brings attention to the victims, it brings attention to law enforcement. All problems you don't need. So don't break the law. Do the right thing, live within the rules of society, and your whole life will be easier, and you won't be noticed, or easily. When you're comporting yourself, decide that you're going to be even-keeled, okay? Don't be a person that flies off the handle. Don't think that the whole world is against you and you've got to fight back to any perceived slight. Let a lot of things go, right? Loud, obnoxious people draw attention. Even in Jersey. I'm talking to some of you, you know who you are. Friends of mine. If you're overly loud, you're overly obnoxious, you're going to draw attention. You're going to stand out. And honestly, even in a room full of loud, obnoxious people, if you're quiet and professional and courteous, you're still not going to stand out. Forcefully opinionated people, as general statement, are just noticeable. Friendly, happy people are much easier to deal with and tend to leave less of a memorable impression on the people they deal with. And understand that about being gray. Don't determine that you're just not going to deal with anybody, anywhere, anytime. You got to live your life. You're going to interact with people as long as you're living in society. You just want to do so in a way that minimizes your profile, minimizes your memorability, unless you decide you want to be memorable to this person. It's your options that we're trying to preserve here. So think before you act. Be purposeful in what you need to do and where you need to go and how you need to do things. And I say that in as much as have a purpose, right? If I'm going someplace to do something, plan it out. Think it through. Don't just wildly go off on your merry way and not put any thought into what you're doing. Save yourself a lot of headaches and a lot of hassles on a general statement. But it's much easier to go gray, which is sort of our concentration here now, if you think things through and you put some thought into where you're going, what you're doing, and why you're going there. Have a plan, even if it's a flexible plan. Think of things like, do I need to go to this destination? Do I need to go there right now? How do I need to prepare if I go right now? Let's be honest. Going to Walmart at 2 in the afternoon on a Saturday is vastly different than going to Walmart at 2 in the morning on a Saturday. Right? It's an entirely different crowd, entirely different vibe, entirely different set of circumstances under which you're going to this place. So if you don't need to go there, wherever there is, and it's a difficult place to go, don't. If you do need to go there, then you need to go there and you need to prepare properly. But the best thing you can do right off the bat is avoid the problem completely. I don't know of a single self-defense trainer, prep trainer, any kind of trainer that I've ever dealt with who doesn't extol the virtues of avoiding problems right off the bat. If you can avoid a problem, avoid it. And if that takes a little bit of planning, maybe a little bit of, I'm not going to go right now, I'll go in 6 hours. I'm not going to go alone, I'm going to go with these other people. Whatever that plan is, think it through, come up with a good way to avoid problems. Once you go do something, don't antagonize other people. Decide that you're going to just be a friendly face in the crowd. Don't mean mug other people, right? Don't stare everybody down that you see. Give them that death scowl. Really sort of sets you up in a position where you're deliberately, visually challenging people. And most people won't worry about it, but some people will. And those are the people whose attention you probably don't want to attract in the first place. A slight smile or a grin on your face can get you a long way when you're looking around and you're paying attention to your surroundings, at not looking like you're a crazy man or a threat. Okay, just a friendly smile, and you look out your window, you happen to notice the person next to you, they see you, they don't see a mean mug looking back at him, they just see a guy grinning, looking out his window, minding his own business, doing whatever he's doing. They'll see that and they'll move on. It saves you a lot of problem. If you do make eye contact with people, and you're going to, right, generally speaking, eye contact is something you want to avoid when you're trying to go gray, but it's not something that you should, actively duck your eyes down, hood your eyes, and make sure that nobody ever looks you in the eye. Actively discouraging people from eyeing you will simply attract attention. But if you do happen to make eye contact, just increase your grin and roll your eyes right past them. They'll do the same thing to you 99 times out of 100. Because you got to remember, no matter how difficult a target you are, no matter how tough you are, no matter how much of a ninja warrior, SEAL Team 6 operator you believe you are, and you may well be, but if you are, you'll understand what I'm about to say, you can be successfully victimized. All right? No matter what you think you're capable of doing, if a bad guy sees you and notices you and decides to come after you and is willing to put forth the time and effort, they can victimize you. So avoid the problem altogether. There's a reason that you see your hardcore military organizations and units wear camouflage when they go into the woods, right? It's so that they are not seen, so that they can avoid problems until they decide to cause problems. You want to be in that same mold. Avoidance, again, is the single biggest benefit of being a gray man. All of this surrounds the idea that you're choosing not to be a victim. Right? That's really where we're going, where we're starting and where we're going to end with this, is that you don't want to be victimized. And a big step towards not being victimized is not being noticed. You want to keep a low profile as part of your overall self-defense plan. Whatever that self-defense plan is for you, a big step I suggest to you is going gray. Being that gray man, being unobserved, being functionally invisible to most people that you come in contact with, unless you choose to be visible to them, unless you choose to interact with them. Understand, being unobserved is merely your first step in your efforts to avoid victimization. And that's where we're trying to help you with here, giving you some pointers here in the Old Gray Man on how to go about doing that. So if this was all helpful for you, I hope it was. I hope you hit like and subscribe, because it's crazy how much that helps. I had no idea getting into this that was that big a deal, but it really is. So please, like and subscribe. Share it if you know anybody that you think might benefit from this. And look for another post here soon. Take care, be safe, and stay low.